So if you think he will fix your tax situation, just remember that the last time he had the ability to do so, and what he did, maybe you benefited or maybe you didn't. I'm willing to bet that many hardworking and struggling Americans today that do support Donald Trump did not benefit from his economic plans.
I'm sick of worrying about lit cars. I'm sick of worrying about the government. I can't eat. I'm broke, nigga. I'm broke.
So it is that time of year again. The election is here. Finally, after a year and like 10 months of the campaigns ramping up, getting on everyone's nerves, dying and finding new life, the time has come for you to cast your ballot if you're 18, a citizen, and have registered to vote in time. And don't forget that your ballot to vote, which you cast, is to select some mysterious set of electors who in some states have to push your popular vote, and in some states they can do whatever the hell they want, and in some states need to reach certain milestones for certain voting methods. America. Land of Taylor Swift, football, money, and sticking our eagle-faced stick up the world's calm butt and getting real rough in there with no lube. And this is the first election in which all those things are lining up center stage if you think about it. So, let's break down some of the key candidates at each level for you to really get an understanding of just who you are voting for and who you are not voting for. Before we get to it, let's get two things out the way. Firstly, this is my opinion based on my review of the facts and how I see the world. So, your view and experience may differ, but I'm pretty smart.
I am too smart. I am too smart. I am too smart. I am too smart.
I mean, I'm stupid smart, but I'm smart nonetheless. Doesn't matter what type, smart is smart. And also, two, you should subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Just click the button. Just do it. So for our first set of fools, I'm
sorry, what?
Politicians, drum roll please. Our presidential candidates. Yep, we're doing the big ones first. The ones we all are tired of hearing about, seeing, and listening to. Doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or like me, a socialist.
You're a monster.
You don't want to keep hearing about these two any more than anyone else, I promise and assure you. You just want to go back to being a real American, am I right? You just want to go back to the good old days of turning yourself into a whale eating some cheap McDonald's or Taco Bell, driving your big truck or your cutesy little car, drinking a beer while watching the game, or drinking a mixed drink or cider because you were too weak to take your whiskey neat like Daddy Hoser.
Mom, is my beard too long?
Sorry. It's a problem, I know. I'm seeing a therapist about it.
Well, that's good to know.
I lied, I can't afford a therapist right now, so it might happen a lot more. But you can help me afford a therapist by subscribing.
Gotcha, bitch.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Anyways, now, we all know the story of both of these candidates. Sure, one showed up in the 8th inning and somehow scored 10 straight home runs to ensure we went into the 9th inning tied. And the other one was once the team no one saw coming and then turned into the Yankees. Peak Yankees, by the way. Nobody likes them but the people who were born in that era. And even in that era, they were disliked, but they won anyway. Pretty much sums up 2016 in a nutshell. Okay, so enough with the analogies. Let's get into the one we all know all too well first. Donald J. Trump.
I'm gonna come.
Let us agree on this. This man just wants to be able to play golf and not go to jail. Now, he might not be able to play golf much anymore, seeing as that doesn't seem to be safe anymore, which, first world problems. And as far as the not going to jail part, I say we make a deal with him if he doesn't win. If he doesn't win, he can avoid jail time. If he stays off social media, he already said he likely won't be running again if he doesn't win, so I doubt the rallies will keep coming. And I doubt he will keep pushing political narratives, true or false, just for the sake of peace that can be. Trust me, if Democrats had done the same thing he had done, all the things,
He downplayed Corona, went to Oklahoma to hold super spreader events. Withheld COVID money and said it'd be funny to be a three-term president. Added much for opposing the plan he's proposing. There were good folks on both sides. Children held separately, mass hysterectomies, evidence of genocide. He said that it's treason during his speeches the audience hold their applause. Repeatedly violates terms of the Hatch Act as well as the Emoluments Clause. Consistently caters to world dictators who slaughter minority groups, or murder reporters, or put out an order for bounties on USA troops. Tried to ban immigration by looking at nations where plenty of Muslims reside. And if you take notice of statements from POTUS, you'll find 20,000 are lies.
I make the same deal, but Biden is basically a zombie, so he is already dead. Bernie ain't never hated anyone or been involved in any crazy political schemes, and Schumer doesn't even use a smartphone, so he is basically out of the question as a real threat with each passing year. AOC is just a very well-spoken New Yorker, and that city and state have so many problems that she will be busy for a while working on those. Pelosi, despite her power play to get Biden out of the race, doesn't really matter much anymore, because just like Biden, it's out of the game real soon. Old age is a bitch. So all the people angry at Democrats, specifically the big names, that they can call out are pretty much non-factors. And the rest of them are basically Republicans.
What did you say to me? I'm sorry. Shit.
Sure, they rep the elephant gang, but they are Republicans who believe very similar things to most Americans. I promise you. Trust me, it's a deep dive. You don't want to go in about how most people are quite literally democratic socialists. They just don't know it yet. But again, a deep dive, we're just not going there.
Explain yourself.
But if he does win, what will Trump be doing? What are people voting for him voting for? And what are people who are voting against him voting for? So Trump says he has never heard of Project 2025. And let's just say, maybe by some magical miracle, he hasn't. Let's give him the generous benefit of the doubt. Let's ignore the fact that many of his writers worked for Trump's campaign and his administration when he was in office. What does Trump stand for? Well, let's look at his administration's policies when he was number 45, and what he said on the campaign trail. I won't put words in his mouth or allude to anything. I will just put his actions and own words right on the forefront, honest to God, I promise you. Hand on the Bible just like he did. Upside down. And yes, despite my personal nature, I am a Christian and do have the love of God within me, follow the 10 Commandments and believe Jesus when he told his disciples, be chill and vibe with everybody. So I'm certain I'm not a heathen.
Oh, thank God.
At least according to how America works. If you go on his website, he claims right there on the front page, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just standing in the way. Now, Trump has an entire Secret Service team which has been giving him the full protective service committed to a president even before the golf grounds attempt. The guy who said if he was the president, they would have blocked out the whole street doesn't speak for the Secret Service and their tactics, because guess what? He isn't in the Secret Service. So, if Trump has a whole set of Secret Service protection, who is out to get him? That doesn't have a legal right to quote-unquote get him. It ain't Democrats. Past two attempts were registered Republicans. They were gun right activists, and they were people who were suffering from mental health issues just like any Republican or Democrat could. The Georgia election case is clear and cut by the law. Hence why there is a case in the first place. We can argue the semantics of what is the law and what is not all the livelong day, but no judge in their right mind would even allow charges to be brought and accepted for trial against a president or former president without being sure as shit there is something there worth discovering in trial. If they were doing it just because they hate him, not only would that be stupid as hell and suicide for their legal career, but it would endanger their lives greatly and be obvious as hell to more than just his supporters.
Duh, I'm stupid.
Alright, so what about the rest of his platform? And remember, this is all from his website, and the facts I use to discuss his topics, right or wrong, will be coming from credible sources. Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Firstly, Trump stopped the pretty aggressive border bill that was bipartisan. Several Republican congressmen said he didn't want them to pass the bill, and he said it himself, quote, I think we killed it, I think it's dead, But you can never say it because bad bills always come back to life because these guys make a lot of money with bad bills, end quote. His words, not mine. That bill was so good for the border that even the Border Patrol was drooling at the mouth for it. The president of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judge, said this about the bill. Quote, the Border Act of 2024 will give U.S. Border Patrol agents authorities codified in law that we have not had in the past. This will allow us to remove single adults expeditiously and without a lengthy judicial review, which historically has required the release of these individuals into the interior of the United States. This alone will drop illegal border crossings nationwide and will allow our agents to get back to detecting and apprehending those who want to cross our borders illegally and evade apprehension. While not perfect, the Border Act of 2024 is a step in the right direction and is far better than the current status quo, end quote. Something really fishy about having that as your top platform priority and making the claim that Haitians are eating dogs and cats when you weren't an elected official and choose to use your influence to kill a bill meant to handle the problem you say exists. Just really fishy. Like large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips is another big platform topic I am sure many Republicans care about. You remember the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts of Trump's presidency? The one where everyone got tax cuts that first year? Mostly small cuts for people in the bottom of 50% of the income brackets, with these cuts average out to just around $500. Meanwhile, those in the top 1% saw an average cut of $60,000. Now, Trump claimed that the corporate tax rate cut would result in $4,000 boost in economic household income.
They're blowing smoke up my rear end so bad, I'm sending off smoke signals.
In fact, new research suggests that workers who earn less than about $114,000 on average in 2016 saw no change in earnings from the corporate tax cut rate, while top executive salaries increased sharply. Similarly, rigorous research concluded that the tax law's 20% pass-through deduction, which was skewed in favor of wealthy business owners, has largely failed to trickle down to workers in those companies who aren't owners. Also, those tax cuts you did get if you were in the bottom 50%, you lost those cuts after just 1 year. So if you think he will fix your tax situation, just remember that the last time he had the ability to do so, and what he did, maybe you benefited or maybe you didn't. I'm willing to bet that many hardworking and struggling Americans today that do support Donald Trump did not benefit from his economic plans.
I'm sick of worrying about lit cars. I'm sick of worrying about the government. I can't eat. I'm broke, nigga. I'm broke.
And likely will not benefit from his current tax cut proposals and no tax on tips. I mean, unless you're a stripper or a bartender. I mean, how much taxes are you really paying on tips if you're not in one of those two professions? In the weaponization of government against the American people is the next platform point. The government is more than likely impossible to weaponize against everyday Americans outside of poor policing and just bad judicial system. Majority of the government departments, which are meant to directly assist American citizens or ensure citizens do something they are required to do, are greatly underfunded. If you are deep in MAGA, I am sure that you heard that FEMA is somehow preventing people from getting aid, stealing land, undersupplying funds, so forth and so on, in the areas impacted by Hurricane Milton and Helene. The $750 payment is the first payment victims of the hurricane received, and that one was automatic for many people in the impacted areas. They can easily apply and get more through many different resources within FEMA. Like 90% of those funds don't need to be paid back. FEMA has even stated this. If anything, FEMA needs more funds to handle the situation, but that isn't something Joe Biden can do to any great deal. He has literally done all the things he can do to assist the governors of each state affected, from immediately accepting emergency declarations by the governors, to talking to each of them, and asking for things they need to assist and aid to impacted areas. FEMA only gets more money if Mike Johnson, a Republican, calls back Congress, and he can't do that because, and this is technically an assumption here, but if he does and they pass an emergency funding bill to further buff up FEMA's responses to those two hurricanes, then that would not look good for the narrative that many Trump Republicans and Trump himself have spun.
I don't know you anymore. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Keep men out of women's sports. I did a video on this. If you don't hate me and aren't red in the face, I suggest you give it a watch. But essentially, the two fighters accused of being men from the Olympics aren't men. Now, I understand that isn't cut and dry enough for some people, and for Americans, and considering what you have been led to believe, and giving you the benefit of the doubt, fair.
But I'm a generous god.
While I do not support genital check bills like those we have seen in Ohio, South Dakota, Florida, Virginia, and other red-leaning states, which by the way would mean that weird coach can pull down your teenager's pants and can quote-unquote confirm that she is a male. They can do the same with your teenage son, which outside the trauma that will cause to them, might turn them gay.
Jesus Christ.
Just saying. No one has thought about that angle, but for you all, I have put my brain through that hula hoop of flames. But back to the topic. The two females didn't fail a test for gender. They failed a hormone test. So at best, if you want to challenge them, at best, you could say they might have been taking steroids, but not that they were men. And that's at best, by the way. Meaning, that's the only one that you could maybe kind of logically lean to and not have half the room hate you.
Weird. Buddy, you're weird.
But if we're being accurate, we did not know at the time that Khalif possibly suffers from a medical condition in which her body produces more testosterone than the usual range of a female, which those numbers are very skewed because they're an average of what might be considered normal. But when she was born, by the grace of her mother's 9 months of work and hours of labor after that, she was declared a female. Her father showed her Algerian birth certificate, and if you think America is tough on LGBTQ plus people, you know, the alphabet mafia you guys dislike and claim want your children, fun fact, we don't. You can keep your snot-nosed boogered little demons. We spend too much time worrying about whether our outfits look good or whether we can be able to pay our bills this month. And you know, the usual stuff everyday Americans worry about. But in Algeria, someone just claiming to be transgender will be put in prison. It's legit that illegal. So why would a very conservative state like that put a literal counter to their own strict laws as the representative of their country in the Olympics? Now, let me make something clear. People who undergo HRT to transition genders actually put themselves at disadvantage to those of the same gender if they were born male and are transitioning to female. And if they are female to male and want to face off against men, you should let them. And here's why. And believe me, I know this part well. After all, this is my letter of the alphabet mafia. Taking estrogen as a male not only weakens your bones, but it also practically eats away at your muscle. You have to basically double your workouts at an increasing rate the first 3 years or so, or else you will lose about 90% of your strength potential very, very quickly. Then you are taking that estrogen for the rest of your life, meaning you are going to constantly be battling muscle loss. And at certain points, that muscle loss will be so significant that gaining it back without testosterone supplements and maybe even harder steroids will basically be impossible. And if you are a woman transitioning to a man, you should be fighting guys fairly quickly because the surge of testosterone will bulk you up. In fact, many trans men deal with rapid hair loss and weight gain as their body turns and churns that testosterone, turning them as close to a man as is physically possible without genital surgery and things of that nature. In that same Khalif video, I talked about the college trans woman swimmer who won one race and all of a sudden people were complaining. And again, not to shoot shots at her, but she was middle of the road compared to her competition.
Emotional damage.
She could still outswim you or me by a country mile unless she was a collegiate level swimmer, regardless of what you think of her. Male or female, any of them would swim a mile worth of laps by the time you or I finished just one lap. But she wasn't this superstar running up trophies because it was easy to hide behind a narrative that she was once a guy but could just claim she was a woman and transition. Also, it's swimming. Outside Michael fucking Phelps, who do you know that's a swimmer and made buku bucks off of it? So why permanently damage your male body just for some damn trophies? Now, a quick run of some of the other key points of his platform. Cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, political content on our children.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Anyone who is voting age and therefore no longer in the school system, excluding maybe college, which defines its own curriculum, do you ever remember learning anything to do with gender ideology, or CRT? Do you remember ever watching anything which was inappropriate racially, sexually, or political content? Did your teacher ever tell you who to vote for? Did you maybe watch a pornographic film with the teacher and the teacher not go to jail?
Wait, what?
Did your teacher ever talk about race beyond the context of the Civil War, slavery, or the Civil Rights Movement? So, like, 3/4 of American history, but still. Keeping context with the question. I bet the answer to all of those is no. Now, with the bare minimum funding most public schools get, do you think that has changed at all since then? You know, PEMDAS is still a thing, algebra is still confusing as hell, and teachers at most complain more about your child not being able to focus on anything rather than anything to do about race. Yes, there are some rare occasions where a teacher might take it too far. Ask any principal in this country what would happen to a teacher if they were told and discovered a teacher was telling a kid to be something they were not. They tell you that teacher is fired and more than likely is going to jail.
You're fired! Get out of here!
And for the last time, CRT is a college-level course focused on pre-law and law students, with some advanced level courses in some high schools. Not for elementary or middle schoolers. Cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut mostly and burdensome regulations. Windmills do not mass kill birds. In fact, the greatest danger with windmills is that if someone has to go up and work on them and a fire breaks out, there really isn't much that can be done for someone stuck on top of the windmill. That's it. Planes don't fly low enough to hit them, and helicopters will actively fly around any windmill fields. They have low impacts on the environment in which they are placed, especially since most of their structure is vertical rather than horizontal, meaning it stands up more than it lays on the ground, just in case you're not sure what those words fucking mean. Electric cars for the most part do suck, and they are actually just as harmful in their production for the environment as gas-powered vehicles. There is room for improvement in that, I will give you that. But so long as the vehicle is driven its full lifespan, it can be beneficial enough for the environment. If Elon Musk wasn't an egg waiting for someone to receive his limp penis, then he would tell you that. But no one wants to do that. Strengthening and modernizing our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world. It quite literally already is, okay? Like, hands down, no question about it. But just in case you're questioning that, here's some stats. We have over 800 bases outside the US itself. Our Air Force is the largest in the world. Number 2 in that ranking, the US Army Aviation Branch. The Marines come in 7 on that list. Our Coast Guard, not our Navy, our Coast Guard, is the 12th largest maritime force in the world. Mind you, the world has like 190 something countries, or maybe 183. It's somewhere beyond 12 countries. Our Navy could essentially fight all the top 20 navies in the world and not only stand a chance, it would still be the literal heavyweight champion if such a bout took place. There are veterans all across the country. Ask absolutely any of them. The amount of things that the military could do to kill someone without even putting a foot on the ground or within 3,000 miles of the target is straight up psychotic. Ask China what their greatest fear of America's military is, and they will tell you the fact that one US aircraft carrier and its supporting ships could literally tie down half of the Chinese Navy for days and likely eliminate them. Oh, and even when they do defeat that US aircraft carrier and its support ships, most of their Navy is really a Coast Guard, meaning it can't travel that very far from its coast. Meanwhile, we have ships that can literally navigate the globe for 50 years without ever needing to stop. Of the top 10 militaries in the world, 7 are our allies and get half of their gear from us. Russia is on the list, and they got dick slapped by Ukraine using American weapons, missiles, and equipment, as well as American intelligence. So, who is to challenge us? Our military is not only already the biggest dick swinging in the room, it is the big dick swinger of the dick swingers with the big dicks. Stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, and crush gang violence and lock up violent offenders. There are currently 583 people per 100,000 residents in America locked up in prison, jails, and detention centers. America has the most people of any first world nation in these places by a country mile, okay? We have more people locked up than like the next 10 countries combined. Our police force and justice system are notorious for a lack of leniency. Just ask your mom what happened when she got arrested for that DUI after struggling to care for you after your dad left and having one weeknight where she drank a little bit too much. Or ask that cousin who was pulled over because of a tail light that was out and ended up with a resisting arrest with violence, battery of an LEO, and driving without insurance, as well as a citation for the tail light. Tell me right now, do you even know if your tail light is working or not? I doubt it, because it's the fucking tail light. And the thing only lights up when you press the brakes. Disregarding that situation, ask yourself this. Seriously, ask yourself this. If our justice system is so bad at leniency and our police often resort to aggressive means when finding a simple infraction, right or wrong, with an American citizen, do you think they aren't doing the same to those who are not even citizens of this country? But don't ask yourself that just yet, okay? Because here are some numbers you should throw into your thinking. According to countless studies, immigrants have lower incarceration rates than U.S. citizens born over a 150-year period. And remember, you can go to jail in this country solely off of a broken taillight. In Texas, a border state, as I am sure you are aware, in 2012 to 2018, had a lower felony arrest rate of illegal immigrants than legal immigrants and native-born U.S. citizens. So is the crime wave that you hear about on TV but never see any stories about, except maybe once a month in a 12-month calendar, in between the countless stories about crime committed by someone born in New York, Montana, Ohio, Florida, Texas, or wherever the hell you are in America, is that crime wave real or just a statistical abnormality we can expect from conditions someone illegal or legal might live in upon coming here as an immigrant? After all, everyone says they would never turn to a criminal life, selling drugs or dealing in illegal activities that may or may not harm others, but put yourself in their shoes. Poor people with household incomes of less than, say, 60K don't have to do much stepping to put themselves in those people's shoes. But imagine that you are paid in cash because you don't have citizenship and therefore can't get a bank account. You fear going to the hospital because you don't have insurance and therefore might not even get service beyond the bare minimum unless you're going to immediately die, and also have to cough up full price for said treatment. Oh, and on top of constantly fearing the threat of deportation, you live with 15 other people in a 2-bedroom rented house by some guy who is a citizen that you all had to pay a beyond market rate tax for just a bed in the fucking house. Would you start selling drugs if the money there could offer you some slightly better conditions, or would you partake in drug use and drinking a lot of alcohol just to get away from the struggle you endure day to day? Would you be willing to beg, borrow, and steal, and in some cases murder, in order to better your material conditions? Not saying all those things are good, obviously they are not, but just imagine being at your low. It's easy to be at your low and take the step to those choices. But then not only are you at your lowest, imagine you have children with you. It's not so black and white, is it? Alright, there are more platform points of Trump, but those are the big ones I wanted to cover. And because you guys need to understand them, in my opinion, and I am done, I will cover more of them down the road in another video. Because let's be honest, we will be dealing with Trumpism in the era of Trump for a long time. We aren't exactly a nation known for moving forward and healing our wounds, if you know what I mean. In the next video, I'm going to cover the platform talking points that we know of, possibly, or maybe magical, that come from Kamala Harris and her campaign. So stay tuned for that one, and I will do my best to get those out as rapidly as possible. That way there's not too much distance for you to first rage at Trump and then rage at Harris. Or get mad at me for shitting on Trump and claim I won't shit on Harris enough. I don't know. I don't really care. All I know is I am Minx28. You should subscribe, and I appreciate you watching the video. And red or blue, I hope you have a good day. Don't forget to vote.